Min Hwan and his parents have come back home after the engagement dinner, and Min Hwan is absolutely pissed at Ji Won's behavior and the fact that he's been dumped. His mum's basically, you might as well say, embarrassed and says about how she told him about home discipline and how he can let her push him down. Like, yeah, she seems ashamed, but she then takes it upon herself to, kind of beat him to the point where he decides to leave and he says that she doesn't know anything. Min Hwan, still pissed now, decides he is going to go confront Ji Won. So he goes to her apartment. Min Hwan thinks that he's been too easy on Ji Won and that how she best know her place. So when he sees the door opening on his end, we see that Ji Won's opened a door, but it doesn't seem to be the same door. She's at a new apartment and she is greeted by Hee-yoon and Ji Hyuk, who are both surprised by the outfit and feels like they have maybe done something wrong. But then when Hee-yoon realizes it's because Ji Won wants to return some goods, she asks, "Oh, did it go well?" And I think she understands what's going on. So they've come there, they've got, some home warming gifts like bleach and loads of toilet roll. And at this time, Min Hwan is greeted by the new apartment occupant who is not too pleased with how Min Hwan has been banging on his door.
누가 교양 없게 남의 집에서 이렇게 큰 소리야?
잠깐만 이거 사비기로 봤는데 재현이 오빠
뭐라는 거야? 말 똑바로 못해?
So Min Hwan is a little confused. So he checks the door number again, says, no, it is the right apartment. He believes that that was Ji Won's brother. It's like, you've been together with this girl for how many years? What, 7? And you're asking if this guy's her brother? Don't you think she would have mentioned a sibling by now? Anyway, this fool finds out that she has moved out, which is surprising. And then we see Ji Won in her apartment just putting away some stuff with Ji Hyuk and Hee-yoon helping out. So Ji Won is putting some books on the shelves and Ji Hyuk helps. And they get, a little close, which Hee-yoon notices. So when they've left the apartment, she does speak to Ji Hyuk and say, like, what are you doing? You know that she's got a guy and that she's planning to get married. Like, what's going on? So Ji Hyuk tells Hee-yoon there's nothing going on between them. So she leaves, satisfied with his answer, but I think she still believes that, there is some kind of feelings involved. And then we go to the next day and we see that Min Hwan is in the office looking vexed, waiting for Ji Won to arrive. And when she does, he walks up to her with an attitude, only to be greeted by a nice little slap.
너는 너 미쳤어? 왜 때린데 또 때려?
So Ji Won manages to get in not one, not two, but 3 slaps before Ji Hyuk steps in. But it is when, Min Won was about to go hit her, and then he tries to say that how, oh, you only step in when I'm going to go do it, and goes on about how it's not fair. Like, dude, no one wants to hear your whining. You got hit, suck it up. Like, you're an ass. Anyway, at this point, she goes on and tells Min Won, like, what, you think it's fair for you to share your love with 2 women, and that how he's been cheating. And you got Mrs. Yang trying to calm her down and tell her, like, let it go. But she doesn't want to let it go. Like, why should she? So at this point, she goes into her bag and she takes out some red underwear, which she then proceeds to put on Min Won's head in front of everybody in the office, saying that she found it in his car. Min Won doesn't even deny it. The first thing that comes out of his mind, out of his mouth is, you went through my car. So you've basically just admitted that you was having an affair. Like, this guy don't even know how to hide stuff. And then he thinks back to when he met Soo Min before the parents' meeting and how they had sex in the car before he went there. So he's at this point thinking that it's Soo Min's underwear, but apparently not. Like, they look fresh, and like, why would you have it in your bag just so if it wasn't fresh? Anyway, she tells him like how dare he shout at her, how he is the cheater, and then she takes off the ring that he got her and proceeds to throw it in the office. This ring takes a nice little flight, hits the wall, and the stone breaks. What kind of cheap ass ring did this guy get? So it's now, gossip in the office about Min Hwan having an affair and cheating on his girl for 7-year relationship. And they mention that how, it was found out that they had sex in a car. Nobody knows who it's with, but they're still discussing the affair anyway, saying that how it is huge news, which at this point it would be in that office. So Mr. Kim turns back up to work and he's there trying to go on like, oh, I'm back. Like, aren't you glad to see me? Like, no one cares. Like, they're too interested in gossiping about the affair. So they just ignore him like usual. So then Minwon's outside and he now realizes this is why Ji-won acted the way that she did at the parents' meeting. And then he sees Sumin and asks her, like, what, can't you manage your panties? At which point she tells him that they are not hers. They've got nothing to do with it. He tries to say that he only did it with her in the car. Because at first she did question, like, who else did you have in the car that you had sex with? So he asks her, like, okay, if they're not yours, like, why are you here? Like, why are you speaking to me at this point? Mrs. Yang and Hyun are trying to console Ji-won, who's thinking to herself that she knew that he would take the bait with the underwear. So they apologize about finding out about the affair. And at this point, Eunho calls because he saw everything and he's worried. So he just wanted to make sure that she was okay. She said that she was and explains that's why he called. And that's when Hyun asks, is that why you was dressed that way when she went to, her house? And she says, yes. Yes, it was. So Minwan thinks back and he says that Ji-won didn't even get into his car, so how would she have found the underwear? So Simmons was like, it doesn't even matter, even if she didn't find the underwear in her car. Like, the fact is he did cheat. They both cheated. And that Ji-won should have acted right to prevent it. Like, really? What is wrong with you, Sumin? So Mr. Kim tries to antagonize Ji-won, and when she just ignores him and just gives him the little, nod, he says that, oh, she's got an attitude and then this is why men cheat on her. So he goes outside and we see that Sumin and Minwon are still having a conversation, and Sumin tells Minwon that how, he shouldn't feel bad about it and that they shouldn't waver, they can't be blamed for their feelings.
지금 네가 뭔가 착각하고 있나 본데. 정수민, 넌 결혼 상대가 아니야.
So Minwon tells Sumin that she's not marriage material like Ji-won is, like she saved a lot of money. He asks like what else does Sumin have to offer apart from good looks and that how she must know her place. Mr. Kim has seen all of this, gets offended and then tries to hit Minwon who, dodges out of the way. We know he can't fight, but apparently neither can Mr. Kim. So they get into like a little tuffle where Minwon is holding Mr. Kim, and then that's when the gossip spreads that the affair was with Ji-won's friend Soo Min and how everyone feels sorry for her. There's even an article at, the workplace about the affair. So Sumin tries to message Ji-won saying that, you don't believe the others, do you? Like, we need to talk. But Ji-won is not interested. So the next day, Mrs. Yang, Ji-won, and Hyun are looking at, the reports on the tasting and how the products are doing in the supermarket. And they find that, their stuffs are just shoved in the back where no one can see it. So they're saying, like, it should have gone well. Like, what's happened? So Mrs. Yang must have got in touch with them to find out why their products are like where they are, and that's when they find out about the incident. So Mrs. Yang confronts Min Hyuk and say like, look, even if there was an incident, why would you cover it up? So he tries to blame Jomar and say that it was, their fault and how they started doing the actual tasting event when both him and Sumin were away. And that's when Ji-won was like, well, weren't you and Sumin supposed to be at the thing? And Mrs. Yang's like, why were both of you away at the same time? We all know what they were doing. So Ji-won was like, oh, look, well, they handled it well with the customer, but not reporting it was what went wrong. And then that's when we see various articles about the cheating scandal and how everyone's been talking about it. So Mr. Lee is having a talk with Min Hwan and he says, like, look, we've banned certain keywords and that basically we're going to move you to another team. But then he tells Sumin that, you know, you're a contract worker. So as of today, you're not staying, basically. Which is funny because she was trying her damnness to be a full-time employee. So she's gone into a different area of the break room, reads the articles and gets annoyed saying that they don't know who she is and like how can they talk about her. So we see her sit down and she's writing a letter. We don't know what exactly it says at this point, but we know that she's up to no good. Mr. Lee is now having a conversation with Mr. Kim and he tells Mr. Kim that basically like in a way, welcome back, but you're being demoted. Mrs. Yang is the manager. If you don't like it, basically you can hand in your notice. Mr. Kim, being the petty man that he is, demands that Mrs. Yang changes his seat. So she gets up to go do it, and G1 was like, no, just ignore him, don't do it. And then we see Mrs. Yang grab her stomach, but I don't think anybody else noticed. So she goes into the storage area where she goes to think sometimes. And that's when we see Mr. Lee come in there and he says, oh, you shouldn't be in here. But she's like, well, you look like you're doing the same thing. Like you've come here to think. And they have a little flashback of when they met, you know, some years prior. And they had like a slight little disagreement. But, you know, it's okay. And she thanks Mr. Kim for the promotion. Mrs. Yang feels bad, so she apologizes to Jiwon and says that, you know, it should have been you that was promoted. But Jiwon was all like, no, you deserve it. Like, you should have been promoted. She doesn't have a problem with it. And at this point, Hyun comes into the break area and says that there's an incident downstairs and that they should go there. So we see that it's the couple that had the allergy problem with Jo Mart and they're demanding to know who Ji-won is and that they want to speak to her. So Ji-won goes and says like, look, I'm Ji-won. And she approaches them only to be slapped by the wife and saying like, oh, you pretend to be okay, but like you're brazen, you even put your name on there. And they show her the phone with the note that was on there, and we see that this was actually the letter that Sumin was writing, and she's uploaded it onto the company portal, and somehow has managed to get it over to the husband and wife. Not sure how she managed that, by the way. So Jiwon's reading it, and we see that basically Sumin's trying to make it out like she was innocent in all of this, and that how it was basically Min Hwan that likes her, and that Jiwon doesn't blame him because she's such an attractive friend. And then she even goes on to say about the consumers and tries to make it out like Jiwon said that she was innocent, and then even signs Jiwon's name. So Jiwon was like, look, this is my handwriting, but I didn't write this. There's somebody else that has similar handwriting to me. And at this point, we see Sumin leaving the office behind and she tries to hide when she sees the commotion.
정수민 거기서!
Jiwon sees Sumin trying to be sneaky, so she calls her and she tells her, like, you better fix what you did, and drags her to the couple and tells her that she needs to apologize. She also grabs Sumin's phone and shows that, you know, it wasn't from her account, and they see that it's somebody else's name on there. So she says that, yes, they do deserve an apology, but it should be from the people that was involved, meaning meaning Sumin and Min Hwan. So the couple mention Mr. Park, and that's when the people in the office realize, like, oh, she's written this because no one will believe her, and that she thought she was basically slick, which she isn't.
정말 죄송합니다. 상황이 너무 극단적으로 안 좋은 쪽으로만 흘러가는 것 같아서 제가 변명한다는 게 급해 선을 넘어버렸습니다. 두 분을 욕되게 할 의도는 절대 없었습니다. 불쾌하실 거라는 거 아는데 제가 거기까지 생각을 못했습니다. 다 제 잘못입니다. 제가 잘못했습니다. 죄송합니다.
So Sumin apologizes, and if you didn't know her, you would have thought that yes, it is a heartfelt apology. And then she says that, she did it because she was feeling very emotional. She even apologizes to Jiwon and says that she can't live without her because she's pregnant. I don't know why they've asked this girl Tincture that if she tells Jiwon that she's pregnant, that Jiwon's going to forget everything this girl has done to her with cheating with her husband, and we will be there to support her. Like, no, get the guy that you cheated with to support you. But he's there sulking in the bar saying about, I've got all these debts. I now look like a man who cheated on his fiance with his best friend and got her pregnant. And he's just drowning his sorrows with the poor me. Like, seriously, just get a Vitamin too. Just get one. So we now see Min Won with a paper bag over his head and he's tied to a chair. And, we've got some guys saying about how you borrowed money from all of these people. And now you're saying that you all of a sudden got money. So he tries to say, like, yeah, I've got a girl pregnant. Like, when I get married, I can get money from my parents. I'll pay you back. Anyway, they leave him and Ji Hyuk turns up, and it turns out it was a plan done by Ji Hyuk and his two friends, just to scare Min Won a little bit. So he manages to get free, and instead of going home, he goes to Soo Min to ask about the pregnancy, ask her if it's true. She says that it is, and she's surprised that Ji Won is ignoring her and how she used to forgive her in the past and understood. Min Won's like, look, let her go. Don't worry about it. He apologizes for saying terrible things to her, but then he then says that, oh, I think you're the one, and basically asks her like to, if she wants to get married.
우리 결혼할까? 오늘보다는 내일이 더 좋은 가족이 될 거야. 내가 약속할게. 내일이 더 좋은 가족이 될 거야. 약속할게.
This guy really said the same thing that he said to Jiwon to Sumin, who's none the wiser. Anyway, it's like the next day, and we see Ji Hyuk's grandfather looking through some paperwork, and he's saying that it's common for managers to steal proposals of the other workers. And Jiwon turns up there, and they have a conversation, and he's like, I heard that you went through a lot, and how there are many difficult people that surround her. And he even asks, like, do you think I'm one? And she turns back and she says, yes, I think you are. So Ji Hyuk has seen this meeting, gets upset at his grandfather a little bit. So he takes Ji-won outside, he apologizes, and she said, why be sorry? So she tells Ji Hyuk a little bit about the conversation that she had with his grandfather, and also mentions that the grandfather's the one that brought up her private life first, but it's okay. And we now see Sumin in a calf on the laptop, and she's trying to buy a positive pregnancy test and sonogram because we all know her ass is not pregnant. So she's doing this just to convince Min Won, saying about, oh, she's going to have a new start, she's going to have a family now. And we've got Ji-won still talking about Min Won, saying that, there's no way for him to get money now. He's going to have to do, a little bit of things because Ji Hyuk tells her about what he did. So they're outside and he hands the gun to Ji-won and, shows her how to shoot. So Ji-won and Hyun are having a meal at Christmas, and Hyun asks Ji-won to marry her because she's so good at fixing a meal. And that's when Ji-won gets a call, and it's Eun-ho, and she says, like, look, there's nothing better than getting a call from a guy at Christmas, so you should go out and enjoy yourself. So she tells Hyun that, tells Jiwon, like, look, you should go, like, her brother's got high standards for food, like, don't worry about her, she's got plans for Christmas. Like, she doesn't. She ends up at her brother's apartment, and she's feeling good about setting up Eun-ho and Jiwon, and her brother is not. Like, my man is sitting there with a big ass tub of ice cream, to which he asks for some. So he, with his vexation, has taken a knife, cut the tub in half, gave her one half with a spoon, and walked away. So we cut back now and we see that Eunho and Ji-won have gone ice skating. So when Eunho goes to go get a drink, Ji-won is looking at a couple skating and she thought for an instant that it was Ji Hyuk, and that's when she realizes her feelings. So when they've gone back to her apartment, she does tell Eunho that he makes a good friend and basically says that she doesn't really have feelings like that for him and that she wishes to be a great friend to him as well. She lets him down easy, like he's a good guy, but we know he wasn't the one for her. So she heads back to the door, and that's when we hear a sneeze, and it's Ji Hyuk hiding around the side. It looks like my mama's been standing outside waiting for her to come home. So she says that she has something to tell him. And that's when she goes to his apartment and sees it's all decorated nicely for Christmas. So she asks, like, what was he going to do if she never asked to talk? And he says, oh, well, I would have asked you to come here one way or another. Because he did all of the decorations after he explained, like, what she believes that Ji-won would have wanted for Christmas. And they stare at each other. And, you know, you can see there's a bit of chemistry. Ji-won says that she wants to be honest with her feelings and tells him basically that there is someone that she cares about, only someone that she could know. And that's when they go in for the kiss. Oh, so sweet. But that's where the episode ends. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.